Back on MorningLine, our guest, Clint Kelly, malpractice attorney, handles cases on a daily basis. You have several active ones right now, do you not?
I do.
You do class action as well?
A little bit.
Real quick, why you ought to call in right now if you have suspicions. We're going to get to these other phone calls, but why is it important if you think something's been wrong, you act quickly or certainly within a year?
Because you will not have a case if you don't.
Statute of limitations.
It will bar your case. You'll never be able to get inside a courthouse. So if you suspect something has happened to you, you need to call a lawyer immediately. Call me. I don't charge you anything to give you a consultation. It's free, but the saddest thing that happens in my business are clients who are injured, and they're injured as a result of medical negligence, and they sit on the case and they think about it and they twist about it, and they get assured by the doctor, oh, everything's going to be okay, and then it doesn't turn out to be okay. A year's passed. They call me and I say, I'm sorry, I can't take your case because the statute ran on you. Your case is barred. And the rule is you must bring or must give notice to the physician of intent to sue within 1 year of the date of the injury, or within 1 year of the date you discover the injury, whichever's later. But you can't wait more than a year.
Yeah. Clint's told me he's had cases that have come through that door that he said, wow, you have a case here. When did this happen? And it was over a year, and you're just like, oh boy, I don't know how to tell you this, but you were injured, but you waited too long. All right, let's go to Sarah. Sarah, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Sarah, how can we help you?
Well, I have an interesting situation involving a doctor, social worker, and my insurer agent that I had called from local insurance when I had my baby 7 years ago. And I was somewhat alone when it happened, and the insurer had assured me that if I had just asked for some Zoloft while I was in postpartum, that I could get it, because it was standard sometimes for people to come in there with postpartum depression already. And then, anyway, I lost my kid because I had been very young and had told the mental health carrier that I was trying to work with that I didn't want to take psychotropic medicines while I was pregnant. And for different reasons that I was afraid that it would affect her and stuff. But I was very young, and they didn't have a male caseworker, and he really didn't understand me at all. But anyway, I went through some serious trauma trying to tell all these different people that I had PTSD and not whatever they were. I had a diagnosis from like 8 years ago, and just all these things that they put into play. And I was just wondering, since I do now have a current diagnosis of PTSD that I received in April. I was just wondering if that would help my case, because it's so old, but that I actually do have that, and it was just proved that I could seek some sort of like.
And what happened to you? How did you lose the child?
Well, I was charged with neglect for not taking psychotropics while I was pregnant.
Oh, and so the child was stillborn, or?
No, she's
taken away
fine,
from her.
But
she's fine. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, she was taken away.
She was taken away. Like, I also had celiac, and I approached my delivery doctor about feeling like I had an intestinal problem, and he never came back to me about it. And I also have like nerve damage in my hips that they didn't.
Have you taken any legal action ever up to this point?
No, I mean, I called lawyers within a month of it happening, and nobody wanted to take it.
That's tough. Okay, Clint, if you have questions for her, she's still on the line, but again, this happened 7 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's an issue now. But you say there's sometimes exceptions to statutes if all of a sudden the condition, no one knew it was there, and it is confirmed years later. That she was confirmed all these years later of having PTSD, could that be an issue?
No, that's not going to save her claim. There's an exception if they leave like a sponge inside your body from surgery, called a foreign object exception. There's also an exception if there's been fraud, if you can prove the physician or healthcare provider defrauded the patient somehow. This sounds to me like if there was a negligence claim to be made, it had to be made years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, you know, in this situation, how much of this is negligence on the part of a healthcare provider and how much of this may be simply part of the psychiatric condition itself. These conditions during pregnancy are notoriously hard to treat.
Sure.
And they're supposed to, generally patients are supposed to know on the front end that this is going to happen. I'm not saying that Sarah should have. I'm just saying that someone you would think would have informed her about the complications she's going to have and having a pregnancy with serious depression issues.
Well, listen, it's good of you to call, but it does seem like that would be a difficult case. So the answer really is that there's probably a reason some of these lawyers have not been able to help her, because it's all this time later, and there are too many issues here. Maybe
too much time has passed
to take on. Again, I'm sorry for what you've gone through. That's awful, Sarah. But thank you. Maybe your story will help others with that to consider. There was a story in the paper. Hayden Panettiere, the actress who's in the show Nashville, recently gave birth to a child. She's married to the heavyweight champion of the world. Do you know that?
No.
And, but she's just checked herself in for treatment of postpartum depression.
It is serious business.
Sure, it is, and it happens. And you need help when that comes down.
Brooke Shields almost took her life over.
Yeah, it is, and you need to be aware of it and get help. And I'm sorry if it wasn't there for Sarah when she needed it.
There's good help out there for it.
Yeah.
You just got to go get it.
Let's go to Patsy. Hi, Patsy.
Hello.
Good morning, Patsy. How can we help you?
Yes, sir. I think you kind of answered one of my questions, but I'm hoping that I can have something done about it, even though the statute of limitation. I had carpal tunnel surgery back last year, but I kept going back to the doctor, and I kept telling him that something was wrong, and he kept telling me, no, there wasn't nothing wrong, that I was just going to have to take time to let it heal and everything. And I was in so much pain, and I was on so much pain medication. And finally, I found another doctor, out of town, and I went to her, and they did a nerve test and everything, and it was 90% nerve damage. And she did surgery, and he had cut the nerve. And I am still, this is my third therapy I'm going through now, and still in so much pain and still on medication.
So he made a mistake, according to this other doctor, and clipped your nerve, which created the pain.
Yes.
When was the surgery?
When was the surgery when he clipped your nerve? What month last year?
Let's see. The first surgery I had was in July of
14.
Last year.
July, and then you had another one with him, or was it just that one with him in July?
Oh, I didn't have another one with him. I went to another doctor, and I had the second surgery in April.
Okay.
This is one of those situations I referred to earlier about a patient that gets carried along by their doctor, thinking everything's going to be okay, you'll heal up fine, and then at the conclusion of a year, when a year's out, the patient finally figures out, I'm not going to get any better, goes and does what Patsy does and talks to a lawyer.
If they can buy themselves a year, they're home free.
Yeah. I'm not saying all of them do that, because there are good doctors out there that legitimately believe their patient's going to get better. There's some who are not and just want to basically try to carry the patient along until the statute runs. It seems to me, from what Patsy's saying, because she had surgery in July, likely knew pretty soon after that surgery something had gone wrong, that she probably knew or should have known, within the year after that something had happened to her. Now, she may still have a claim. It's just, these are one of those real tricky, difficult cases, simply because the patient gets lulled into believing everything's going to be okay, and it's not.
Should she call you?
I don't think I'll be able to take her case.
You can't, because?
Because I think the statute's part of her claim.
The statute is part.
I'd want her to get a second opinion, but that's a case I just don't want to get involved in, because I don't think I can win it for her.
Yeah, that's the problem. He's being honest with you, and had this happened within the year, do you think she might have a case?
Yeah, she might. I mean, it depends on whether
you have the documentation, it shows that he did cut it, and
you and I haven't talked about as yet the risk of the procedure. There are some procedures that have risks associated with it, that these types of things can happen even when a doctor's following the standard of care. Doctors aren't perfect. They do the best they can, and in some cases there's going to be some damage done during a procedure. The question is, did this doctor do something that was outside the norm?
That's tricky, isn't it?
And I don't know enough from her case.
Have you ever had a carpal tunnel type case?
Have not.
Okay, interesting. Listen, thank you for sharing your story, and again, an example here is you may have had a case, but unfortunately a year has passed. I hope you're feeling better now, though, that you did find a new doctor. Let's go to Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hey.
Hey, what's going on, Paul? What you got?
I just got a little problem. I was in the hospital here at Dixon, Tennessee at Horizon Medical Center, and they thought I had pneumonia. But anyway, I come home, and I got sick again, so this time I went on to St. Thomas, and every doctor that I would come in the office, in the room, he wanted to do the same test over and over. Then he'd call his buddy, and he'd come in and want to do it all over. They done 4 tests 3 times, and I got tired of it. And then I really turned loose on them.
What'd you do? Did you yell at them?
I done quite a bit of it.
And how did they take that? They say you were right, or did they discharge you? What happened?
I got discharged.
I bet he did.
Yeah.
But my medical doctor, he come around and said, you done more butt kicking that day than I could do in 2 weeks.
But they still billed you for all those tests?
And I still have it.
Okay. So is your point, though, I didn't know, did you have a question along those lines?
No, I got a pacemaker, and they would keep bolting to run MRI.
Okay.
But I went in for leg weakness.
Yeah.
But I've been that way for years.
All right. Well, you know, I mean,
a medical doctor can't come in and doctor you in the hospital. You have to take a house doctor.
Well, he's an example of someone who doesn't have, well, he may have respect, but if he feels as though he's been wronged, you let him have it. Now,
well, you heard what he just said. Remember, we talked about hospitals. He called it a house doctor.
Yeah,
that's exactly what he's referring to. Paul's talking about a situation where you get Dr. Jones coming in one day, Dr. Roberts coming in the next. I'm just using these names loosely.
Right, you are. Yeah, he's talking about what you talked about earlier.
And the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, so you get a lot of duplication in terms of tests, which can be it can be exasperating for the patient. Let me just say this, though, because I don't want to make sure that we get off the wrong foot here. These tests can save lives.
Yeah.
So you have to be real careful about how you criticize repetitive tests, because sometimes those things are necessary to save a life. But with that said, the way Paul's describing this sounds like a situation where they're just not keeping up with what the other guy does, and they're repeating tests.
Yeah, and it's costly too, is it not?
Costly.
It gets costly. It's just,
and can be painful.
Yeah, cautionary tale on some of those tests. You imagine having one colonoscopy after another? I don't know if that's what he had, but that would suck.
Well, and see, what can Paul do? Because on the one hand, you get really upset about this being done, but again, these tests may save Paul's life. You don't know as a patient.
Right. So you have to defer. And then finally, though, maybe after the 4th time,
you're like, ho, enough.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want Paul mad at me. All right, let's take a break on that note. When we come back, more of your phone calls, more of our conversation with the malpractice attorney Clint Kelly right after this.